Allan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning for Friday. How are you? We are talking about Gideon this week. And hey, Erev Shabbat Shalom. It's the Sabbath tonight. Hey, I'm not going to be traveling till about, I don't think I have to go anywhere till the third week of August. So we shouldn't have any interruptions with our regular programming schedules. And hopefully I can finish the field manual, right? Yeah. What else? What else? Well, it's Friday, so let's get into Friday mode and let's talk about what we're going to talk about because I have a very busy day today. Family, we got a wedding a week from tomorrow. Working on that. Yeah. So, hey, we are in Judges chapter 6. We are talking about Gideon. I'm going to read some stuff. We're going to kind of go back to, go a little back to what we've already maybe have discussed. I want to unpack some more, or just give us some insight on a couple things. Judges 6, verses 11 through 13. The angel of the Lord appears to Gideon and says to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." And Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us?" A couple things there. It seems like maybe this has happened before, right? I mean, it doesn't seem like this is maybe his first encounter. We're not sure. We don't know. The one thing that we do know is he doesn't fear the angel of the Lord. He's not afraid most of the time. This isn't just an angel. This is the angel of the Lord. It's commonly believed that this would be the Jesus character or Messiah, right? Yeshua showing up in the Old Testament narrative. I don't have a problem with that. But what I do find interesting is that Gideon is not afraid. We have also discussed where the angel of the Lord is synonymous with the Lord, Adonai. So there's that going on. So that's always interesting. He's not afraid. We don't know if he has seen him before, but he's talking to the angel as if, I don't know. Is there a familiarity there? A common, maybe? I don't know. Maybe he has had visitations before. We don't know. But it is interesting that he's not afraid and they're having and he talks to him like that about, hey, if you're speaking the truth, why has this happened to us? Verses 15 through 21. My clan is the weakest in Manasseh. I am the least in my father's house. That's always significant because a lot of times we have seen in the narrative where whoever is being approached by God to do some great feat for him is always gives their reasons for why they're not qualified. Remember in the New Testament when Jesus tells the disciples to feed the people, they're like, we don't have the money. We always have an excuse of why we can't do the job. And then if we align ourselves and provide, with him, what are the resources we do have, God always comes in and he takes care of it. And here, he says it right here. The Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." So once again, God says, hey, I want you to do something. We say we're not qualified, or we're not, you've got the wrong guy. And then God says, no, I don't. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to be here. I'll be there. I'll withstand, I'll hold you up. I'll take care of it. Right. So he does say this to Gideon. And so Gideon basically is kind of making Gideon understands some things. He understands protocol and he understands rules of engagement. Here's why I say that. Gideon says to the Lord, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay till you return." Remember, the angel is sitting underneath a tree. The angel of the Lord is sitting under a tree. Gideon says, hey, if this is really you, I'm going to need a sign, which is good. You got to test the spirits. Is it stick or snake? Is it Is it demonic or is it holy? This is good protocol. He understands that. But more than that, he understands protocol because of what he's about to go do. Gideon went into his house and prepared a young goat and unleavened cakes from an ephah of flour. This is a Levitical move here as when it comes to offerings, right? You've got unleavened cakes and you've got a goat. This is part of the instruction. He understands protocol. He understands rules of engagement. The meat he put in a basket and the broth he put in a pot and brought them to him, to the angel, under the terebinth, and presented them. And the angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened cakes and put them on this rock and pour the broth over them. And he did so. We should be thinking about Elijah when he's Elijah, when he's taking on the prophets of Baal and he had them douse the altar, douse the sacrifice with water. And then the angel, the fire of God came down and lit it up. We see this is pretty much happening here. Then the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes with the tip of the staff that was in the hand of the angel. And fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. I've got grandkids. I'm wondering if they're at the door. I don't think so. And consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. And the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. If you continue reading, it'll say that Gideon says, now I know that it's you, that it's actually the angel of the Lord versus just some angel. And he says that he won't die. He will actually spare his life. He won't kill him now that he realizes that it's what's going on is actually going on. Very interesting. Okay, we're talking about Gideon. Here's why I want us to consider Gideon. I want you to consider the relationship or the understanding that Gideon has, the protocols, the rules of engagement, right? He understands that he gives a sacrifice to this, he brings an offering, a sacrifice. So, but what happens next is very interesting here. Check this out. It's part of, doing the nose thing. It's part of the rules of engagement and the protocols that we're supposed to have in these things. And that's the abstinence of paganism. That night the Lord said to him, take your father's bull and the second bull, 7 years old, and pull down the altar of Baal that your father has, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it, and build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold here, with stones laid in due order. There is a lot here in this verse. First of all, I failed to calculate how much time has passed since the Exodus. It's chapter 6 of Judges. So we're well into being in the promised land. So time has elapsed. There are not supposed to be Baal altars or Asherah poles in the land of Canaan, in the promised land. All right? Israel was told, taught, instructed, shown that when they entered the land, the first thing they were supposed to do was destroy their altars, the Canaanite altars, the altars to their Nephilim gods, the Baal and the Asherah. That's like the first thing they were told to do when they entered the land, as part of the cleanup, as part of the dispossessing of the not entirely human groups that occupied the land of Canaan, the Nephilim, the Canaanites, all the ites, 34 kingdoms and 7 nations, I believe it was. One of the first things they were supposed to do was to destroy all their gods and altars and their high places, and then eradicate the land from the people group. And God would go before them and do so little by little. So the fact that there's an altar of Baal and an Asherah pole right beside it, and it belongs to Gideon's father. Tells us everything we need to know. They are in absolute, full-blown, blatant rebellion. They are in absolute, full-blown breaking the covenants of God, the precepts of God, His Torah, the law, the instructions. They swore on heaven and earth that they would keep these instructions, and here we see that they are blatantly, in broad daylight, in full open, they're not even hiding it. Man. Take your father's bull and the second bull 7 years old, and pull down the altar of Baal that your father has, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it. And then do what instead? Build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold here. Where God calls the top of this location, where this Baal altar and Asherah pole are, a stronghold. And he's supposed to erect an altar to Adonai, your Elohim, on this stronghold there, with stones laid in due order. There is a process, there's a methodology, there is an absolute rule of engagement, a protocol. You tear down the pagan idols in your life, in your family line, that belong to your fathers. And instead, you erect the altar to Adonai on top of that stronghold. You dispossess the ruling demonic authority, and you put an altar to Adonai on it in its stead on that stronghold. Very important here. Do you want the blessing of the Lord that Gideon's about to have, that Gideon's about to get? Well, if you do, the first thing you got to do is get rid of the pagan altars in your family line, in your territory, on your property, in your life. And you erect an altar to Adonai your Elohim in its stead on the stronghold, with stones laid in due order. Okay. Then take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the Asherah that you shall cut down. Yeah. So Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his family and the men of the town to do it by day, he did it by night. This is real here. This is real talk here. This is real stuff going on. Gideon was afraid of his family. He was afraid of the men of the city. He was functioning from the fear of man, even though he's standing before Adonai and is living to tell about it. Isn't that amazing? He's not afraid of the angel that comes to him. He's not afraid of the angel of the Lord that comes to him, that's sitting under the tree, that appears to him. He even talks a little smack to him. Please, if what you were saying was true, then why is all this bad stuff happening to us? Well, who can guess why? There's a Baal altar and an Asherah pole on your property. Want to know why bad stuff's happening to you? You were told that if you didn't tear down the high places and the altars of Baal and Asherah, and if you even inquired on how they worshiped their gods, if you didn't tear them down, you were going to get punished. If you inquired on how they worshiped their gods, you were going to get punished. And if you actually adapted their forms of worship, you were definitely going to get spanked. He's not afraid of the angel. He's not afraid to talk smack to him. He's not afraid to ask him to wait around and prove to me that it's you while I go and prepare a goat and unleavened cakes. And he lives to tell about it. But he's afraid of man. But he's afraid of his family. He's afraid of the men of the city. Think about that. Are you understanding that? Father, open the eyes and ears and the open up their minds, Father, to the understanding of this revelation. He's not afraid of Adonai, but he's afraid of man. So he does it by night. Now, when the men of the town rose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was broken down, and the asherah beside it was cut down. And the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. And they said to one another, who has done this thing? See, they're going to get upset about that. They'll get upset about the lie and the false religion and the false. They'll get upset about somebody raining on their false parade, right? But they're not upset about the fact that everything they're supposed to represent and do in the land that represents God isn't being done. That's not going to upset them. Who has done this thing? And after they had searched and inquired, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing. Then the men of the town said to Joash, bring out your son that he may die, for he has broken down the altar of Baal and cut down the Asherah beside it. This is how far removed Israel is from the scriptural narrative. They have Baal and Asherah poles, Baal altars and Asherah poles erected on their property, on their territory, in the land. They haven't demolished them. They're worshiping them. And they're upset now because someone has tore them down. And they want to put that man to death. I'm not pausing for dramatic effect. I'm letting this marinate in your spirit. Gideon's not afraid of Adonai, but he's afraid of the men. The men don't fear God, but they want to kill the man who has torn down the false god, the Baal altar and the Asherah pole. And he used the pole for wood for the sacrifice. Yeah, that's what that is. I know way too many Christians that are like the men of this town. I can see their faces, I know their names, and it breaks my heart. Now, so anyway, they inquire of his dad. If you continue reading on your own, they inquire of his dad. His dad basically says, "No, I'm not going to deliver up my son. You know what? If Baal and Asherah are real, let them contend. Let them deal with it, right? Because they're false gods. So I don't, did Gideon's dad have this stuff because it was a social norm? Everyone else is doing it, but he knew that it was just not. That it was a farce. Sounds like it, but still, that's not gonna. No. Good intentions? No. God doesn't deal with good intentions. He deals with absolutes. Verses 33 and 34, we see that the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east come together, and they crossed the Jordan and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Adonai, of Elohim, clothed Gideon. Understand that. We are supposed to be clothed in the Spirit. Incorruptible. Remember? We put on incorruptible. We put on our armor of light. As the bride, we are granted to clothe ourselves and ready ourselves in fine white linen, which are our righteous deeds. Do you see what's going on here? And then Gideon sounded the shofar. He is sounding the alarm for God's people to arise and to take on the enemies they failed to eradicate. Was it a couple hundred years prior to this? Yeah. There's about 32,000 men assembled for Gideon. able to, God says, yeah, that's just too much. That's too much. Those majority numbers, I don't like those majority numbers, because then they'll be able to say that they did it. And I'm a jealous God. I'm God. I'm Elohim. I want the glory. I want the honor. I want the praise. I will do this, because that's just the way it is, right? We're supposed to let the people, we're supposed to be preparing people for the Lord, and letting the world, the earth realm, know that there's an Elohim in Israel, and we're supposed to be making his name famous and great. That's why I do this. So anyway, 32,000, and he basically says, if you're afraid, go home, and he loses, I think, 22,000 or 20,000 people. And it's cold, and God keeps culling it down to 300 men. That's 0.94%. It's not even 1% of the original assembly. You need to be suspicious of the majority rules. You have to be suspicious when everybody's in on it. You should be a little concerned when everybody's doing it, when everybody's on board, when everybody's pushing a certain agenda, when the numbers favor something like that. You just need to be a little, because God doesn't do that. God's always in the minority numbers. What if they don't have what Yah wanted in character as well? Could be both reasons. Yeah, that's true too. You want to, God's always going to work with the remnant, and he's always faithful to keep a remnant. That's what you need to be looking for. So anyway, he calls it down to less than 1%. Judges 7. Let's go to, we're going to read a few verses out of here. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number. That's a lot of people, as the sand that is on the seashore in abundance. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, behold, I dreamed a dream. And behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down so that the tent lay flat. And his comrade answered, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped. Key there. He worshipped. And he returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord, for Adonai has given us the host of Midian into your hand. I love this. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into the hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. They're more than likely shofars. And he said to them, look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, like me and my 100 guys, then blow the trumpets also on every side of all the camp and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon. Yes. Yes. Can you see it? As soon as Gideon heard the dream and the interpretation, he worshipped. And then he went and encouraged his 300 men that they had this, that God was going to give them Midian. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to divide into 3 groups of 100, right? The hands of all of them in empty jars. Trumpets in one hand and jars in the other with torches inside the jars. One hand had a shofar. The other hand had a jar with torches in it, with fire in them. Man. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, a sword for the Lord, for Adonai, and for Gideon. That's what they shouted. They cried out. That's called spiritual warfare. There was a dream, an interpretation, worship, and then you just put God first, right? Judges 8. All right, so there's go ahead and read what happens in the rest of chapter 7. And I want you to see this here. Then he said to Zebah, Gideon, and Zalmunna, these are the bad guys, the pagan guys. Where are the men whom you killed at Tabor? And they answered Gideon, as you are, so were they. Every one of them resembled the son of a king. You want your pagan enemies to see you manifest looking like, resembling the son of your king. This is a pretty high testimony. When your pagan enemies see you looking like the son of your king. And there are rules of engagement. There are ways to accomplish that. There are ways to acquire that countenance. Prayer, fasting, worshiping in the Spirit, speaking in tongues, worshiping the eating of the word, being in the presence, keeping his commandments, what you eat, right? Eating a certain way. See, they looked a certain way. But what are the outline? Okay, there's stuff that they did. Here's the things that Gideon did on the outside, and the things that Gideon did on the inside. On the outside, they ate biblically clean. They ate biblically. They didn't eat unclean. That's going to affect you. That's going to affect your health. It's going to affect your countenance, your immune system. That is going to keep you from putting anything in your system that is not of the Father, that is not acceptable, that is not permissible. Oh, by the way, look, I've loved these since I first seen them, and I finally got one in the black. Woohoo! They ate scripturally clean. They didn't mix linen, wool, and cotton in their clothing, because that's also a commandment. They kept themselves sexually pure. They abstained from paganism, and they worshiped God. So these are the things you can do on the outside, right? What do you do on the inside? Well, worship, praying in the Spirit, activating your spirit man, that relationship with that extreme obedience and extreme interactive relationship with the Holy Spirit. Fasting, prayer, reading of the word, fellowship. See, so that you will resemble the son of a king. The men that you killed at Tabor, the men that we killed at Tabor were like you. They resembled the son of a king. They looked a certain way. And Gideon said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As Adonai lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you. So he said to Jether, Gideon's firstborn, rise and kill them. But the young man did not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a young man. That's a pretty insulting thing to tell your young son to execute these pagan leaders, because it would have been, it wouldn't have been quick and swift. It would have been like, it would have been yucky and messy. Yeah. So then Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise yourself and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. Now they're talking smack. And Gideon arose and killed them, and he took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks of their camels. I know you guys are understanding where I'm getting at. But here's what you do want. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to be. You want to be that guy. You want to have a relationship with the Father where your honor and respect and fear of him is godly. You want to understand the rules of engagement and protocol when it comes to your offerings. You have to eliminate the paganism in your line, in your family, on your territory, in your land, on the strongholds. You have to cut those altars down and those Asherah poles down, and you erect altars for Adonai, your Elohim. You worship God. You encourage those around you, under you, with you, that you've linked shields with, to do the right thing and to serve the Lord. You put God first as you go forward, and you want the testimony of your pagan enemies. You want their testimony to be that you look like the son of your king. Here's what you don't want to do. So in chapter 8, verse 22, the men of Israel want to make Gideon their ruler. Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson. There's Deuteronomy 6. And Gideon said, no, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. But then he makes a request of them to bring them their earrings, golden earrings, because then they had them because they were Ishmaelites. And they willingly gave that to Gideon. And it was a lot. It says it was like 1,700 shekels of gold, besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the necks of their camels that Gideon took. But that Gideon then made an ephod of it. He made a unsanctified religious copycat, a counterfeit. He made an ephod. He doesn't have the right to do that. He's not a Levite. But he makes one anyway out of this, out of these earrings, and then he puts this ephod, hangs it up in the city, in his city, and all Israel whored after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. Then we find out what happens to his family. It's not good. It's basically a curse. So it doesn't end well for his line. It's not good at all. You have to be very careful. We have to be very careful that what we do and how we do it is always in alignment with the Father's bidding and the Father's will. That's your 2-minute warning.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.